Welcome back in Live Now. I'm Austin. Westfall. Axios says that Israel and Lebanon have agreed to the terms of a ceasefire agreement to end the Israel-Hezbollah conflict. It's important to underscore, though, that the parties have not yet announced an agreement as of this hour officially. Let's get the latest from Fox's Alex Hogan.
Israeli airstrikes rocking Beirut Monday, one day after Hezbollah carried out its heaviest day of bombardment on Israel in weeks, launching more than 250 rockets and missiles toward Israel Sunday. While smoke marks city skylines across the neighboring countries, diplomatic progress to broker a ceasefire is underway.
We continue to work to try and get an agreement over the line, and we're hopeful we can get one, but we need both of the parties to get to yes.
Lebanon's Deputy Speaker of Parliament today told Reuters that there are no serious obstacles left. Israel touting progress, too.
We haven't finalized it, but we are moving forward. I assume that the cabinet will meet today or tomorrow to discuss it.
The ceasefire would include a 60-day pause in fighting, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon, Hezbollah retreating from the southern border of Lebanon, and Lebanon's army creating a buffer along the border with UN peacekeeping workers. Certain sticking points have held up talks, like Israel wanting more guarantees to make sure Hezbollah's weapons are removed from the border and wanting to be able to strike Hezbollah sites in Lebanon if they believe the militant group is going to violate the agreement.
Israel suspects that the Lebanese army will also fail, and that to keep the Hezbollah fighters out. That is why Israel wants to be able to go back in there as part of the deal.
Washington sent U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein to hammer out details last week. Today, an NSC spokesperson telling Fox, "We continue to work to reach a diplomatic resolution to allow civilians on both sides of the blue line to be able to safely return to their homes." In Tel Aviv, Israel, Alex Hogan, Fox News.
All right, Alex, thank you. Let's take a live look at Beirut. It is the early morning hours in the Middle East. We do have Dr. Alon Burstein standing by. As always, Alon, it's good to have you on. The deadly back and forth between Hezbollah and the IDF has been going on since October of 2023 alone. Why is this discussion happening now? What do you deem to be the primary factor in getting the two sides to possibly cool off?
It's good to see you, Austin. Really what we've seen is the sort of slow burn between the sides that had been going on for a year, since October 8th, when Hezbollah started firing rockets at Israel, October 8th, 2023, almost an entire year until Israel finally invaded Lebanon on October 6th of 2024. During the entire time, you and I spoke a bunch of times. We kept on saying, it's just every day the same thing. Rocket fire, IDF retaliation. Rocket fire, IDF retaliation. IDF fire, Hezbollah retaliation. What happened is things started to spiral in July, finally coming to a boiling point in throughout September, October, Israel invades. Right now, the situation is that both sides seem to feel like it's a good opportunity for them to climb down from where they are. Hezbollah has been hit very badly, both in its image, the pager attack, the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah. These are things that Hezbollah had an image that Nasrallah was untouchable, that their intelligence networks were untouchable, and Israel showed that it can touch that and actually plow through that. At the same time, Israel has managed to convince Lebanon that Lebanon has to take an active role. It can't just sit back and say Israel needs to withdraw, but in fact, it has to take an active role and pull its armies south and try to enforce whatever deal ends up being decided upon between the sides. So both sides seem to think that now is a good time. Another factor that is being mentioned in Israel, it was quoted throughout the day on several different news sites, a senior Israeli diplomatic official, which is usually code for the prime minister's office, has been putting out a lot of messages saying Israel has to agree to this now, because now is a quote-unquote dangerous time for Israel vis-a-vis the U.S. administration. U.S. President Biden, seen as right now the lame duck, right, is after the elections, and Netanyahu really remembers when Obama, already after the elections, the first time that Trump was elected president, Obama used that time in order to not veto resolutions that were condemning Israel in the Security Council. Israel's very worried about that. So both sides seem to think, Hezbollah on one side, Lebanon on one side, Israel on the other side, seem to feel like, you know what, now is a good time to de-escalate and climb down. It's very important to note, as was said in the news site that you were just showed, it's a 60-day trial period, not for sure what's going to happen. So for both sides also, 2 months takes us into already the Trump administration. So remains to be seen what happens after that.
So Israel's military has killed nearly all of Hezbollah's top leaders, but the terrorist group has alone continued to fire missiles into Israel, correct? Is Israel likely far away from completely eliminating that threat? Does it feel that way?
So, I've been asked this a lot about eliminating the threat from Hamas. What does it mean to have total victory against Hamas? And what I keep on telling people is historically, throughout the entire world, you cannot annihilate a terror organization solely by repression. It simply has not happened. There's over 3,500 terror organizations in the world. None of them have ever been annihilated solely by repression. You have to have a combination of repression and some sort of diplomatic political agreement from within the other side. So the most that Israel can probably hope to achieve is to have hit Hezbollah really badly and then have an agreement with Lebanon and convince Lebanon it's in your interest to now try to actually keep Hezbollah in check. Israel has been saying that it has taken out 70 to 80% of Hezbollah's mid-range rockets. It has killed 70% of Hezbollah top ranks and operatives. That may be so. Hezbollah was estimated to have 130 to 150,000 rockets prior to the war. You take out 70% of them, you're still left with a good 10, 20, 30, depending on what range rockets we're talking about, 1,000 rockets. All it takes for a terror group, and this is where terror groups have the advantage, they don't need a big army. All it takes is 2 people and 3 rockets, and there you go. They've ignited the war again. So really the idea that you can completely eliminate Hezbollah by taking out every single rocket is very unlikely. As Israel has been showing, rockets are hidden in every school, in every house in southern Lebanon. It's not going to happen solely by IDF taking over the area. It's going to have some sort of cooperation from the Lebanese side. Hopefully, the way this deal is coming together, we might see that. One more thing I want to add about this deal, because it's very interesting, this international mechanism that's supposed to be put in place in order to enforce the deal is going to involve the United States, France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. There's a lot of back and forth between the sides about who is going to participate. One country, though, is absent: Russia. Russia was supposed to be part of the initial deal. Israel sent one of Netanyahu's closest confidants, Ron Dermer, a minister in Israel, to negotiate with Russia in order to try to bring Russia in. On the one hand, it sort of makes sense, right? This is a deal Israel-United States right now, what's going on in Ukraine. It makes sense to keep Russia out. On the other hand, in my analysis, that's actually a blow against the deal. Russia has monumental forces in Syria. Russia has very big influence on Iran and on Hezbollah. If Russia was participating in this international mechanism, I would say there's another force that can actually have presence on the ground, maybe stopping weapons smuggling through Syria and Hezbollah. I understand why the different actors maybe didn't want Russia involved. When I saw that, I think a lot of people had a sigh of relief. In my opinion, that's actually a strike against the ability to enforce this deal.
We're taking a live look at Beirut here. Israel has not let up on striking Hezbollah targets in Beirut. We've watched it live on our feeds over the past few weeks here and longer than that. What has the IDF done in Lebanon's largest city in recent months alone? Can you break it down?
So in Beirut, Beirut is divided, like a lot of cities that have a lot of ethnic divisions, between different sectors. And the main area of the Shiite population is the Dahya area, that is the area in southern Beirut. That is where Hezbollah had its main headquarters. Most of Hezbollah's financial activity also there. That is the area that the IDF has hit the hardest. The Dahya area in southern Beirut has been the one that has been repeatedly pounded by Israel. Many times Israel has actually called upon civilians to evacuate certain areas. Many times it is attacked without calling upon civilians to evacuate because it was carrying out an assassination. And then Israel does not give a warning before that. Hassan Nasrallah was killed in a bunker in the Dahya area. We have seen relentless bombing in this area. Israel has seemingly gone out of its way to try to not attack in Beirut outside of the Dahya region, likely, I would argue, as part of a strategy trying to also drive a wedge between the Shiite population and possibly supporters of Hezbollah and the other Lebanese population who themselves, for internal political reasons, might be against Hezbollah. But more than that, trying to show if you are affiliated with where Hezbollah has its main activity, its main headquarters, then you're in danger. But if not, then Israel has no problem with you. Israel's not trying to just carpet bomb Beirut, despite all the rhetoric Israel was saying over the last year, that what happened in Gaza and Han Yunis in Gaza City will be the fate of Beirut. Israel's seemingly gone out of its way to not attack a lot outside of the Dahia region in Beirut. In turn, the Dahia region has been very, very heavily pounded. Some have argued that this has been done excessively in order to have a display of force. Others have said most of the strikes have been targeted towards Hezbollah targets. Likely, it's a combination of both. Hezbollah has an abundance of targets in the Dahia region in Beirut. The IDF, even if it was limiting itself to those targets, has decimated large parts of the southern areas of the capital city.
So let's not forget about Gaza also. What has been happening in Gaza as all of this has been happening? Could a possible ceasefire up north mean anything for the Gaza war?
Seemingly, a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon is probably going to actually lead to an intensifying of the war in Gaza. First of all, this has been said publicly within Israel. When I was quoting before, this, the quote-unquote senior political official was saying that one of the reasons to go for a ceasefire in Lebanon is because that'll allow both to divert the IDF troops from Lebanon back to Gaza, and also because it will sort of loosen the reins that the United States may have been imposing on Israeli activities in Gaza, because Israel has, given the Biden administration a ceasefire in Lebanon, so to speak. So a ceasefire in Lebanon is unlikely to project towards a ceasefire in Gaza. It is also effectively severing the tie that Hezbollah created between what happens in Gaza will impact what happens in Lebanon. If there's a ceasefire in Lebanon, then that statement is no longer valid. In the last months, we have seen a substantial intensifying of fighting in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. It started from an operation in Jabalia refugee camp at the end of September, but really has expanded towards the areas of Sajaiya, Zaytun, Rimal, throughout the Gaza City. We've had massive IDF activity. I would say, I haven't looked at the numbers in the last 2 days, but as of a few days ago, it was between 8% and 9% of the IDF casualties have been killed in the entire war, have been killed in Jabalia. And that is significant not only in order to illustrate the intensity of ongoing fighting there, but also to somewhat validate a lot of the criticism that has been leveled at Israel with its lack of policy of what happens after it's cleared an area. Gaza City, where the IDF is fighting right now, was declared clear of Hamas, clear of the Al-Qassam brigades as of last year. The IDF pulled out of there in December. The fact that there's been no policy implemented to have some sort of alternative regime there has led to the fact that Hamas is completely rebuilt. And here we are a year later, the IDF is going back in, losing troops constantly. We've had hundreds of Palestinians have been killed also. Reportedly, over 50,000 Palestinians have evacuated that area. And this is just in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip. The IDF has pulled out of Han Yunis also, the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. At some point, they're going to have to go back there without developing the day after plan, so to speak, which is what the United States has been pressuring Israel to do. There is seemingly no answer to. So what happens? The IDF goes in, annihilates Hamas in some areas, but Hamas just returns. It rebuilds. There has to be some plan put into place. Without that, we're seeing this current fighting in Jabalia refugee camp spilling over to the rest of the northern parts of the Gaza Strip.
Alon, this is the first time I've talked with you since the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants last week for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and his former defense chief, Yoav Gallant. Have we learned anything new about this since the news was announced on Thursday? Could this actually be consequential in any way?
I think this is going to have a lot of consequences when it comes to international relations that surround Israel. It's unlikely to have consequences in the sense that we're unlikely to see Netanyahu or Gallant arrested and brought before The Hague. However, the fact that Israel's current prime minister, it's different even with Gallant, who is the former defense minister. The current prime minister is now has an international arrest warrant out for war crimes and crimes against humanity, is unto itself not only sort of an indictment on Israel's image, it is going to be a lot of wind in sails of a lot of different actors. First of all, international pressure against different actors to impose weapons embargoes on Israel. We've already seen France, Italy, some actors in the United Kingdom, rumors in Germany, different countries saying they're starting to limit their weapons transfers to Israel. Right now, all of a sudden, when the International Criminal Court has said the current leader of Israel and director of the war in charge of war crimes against humanity, likely we're going to see within those countries a lot more pressure to impose weapons embargoes on Israel. In the United States, we're also going to see some challenges, albeit President-elect Trump has said that he is going to punish The Hague for this, and there's a lot of rumors that he's going to increase weapons transfers to Israel. However, within the United States, there's also a lot of laws that restrict transferring weapons to countries if those countries are in violation of human rights. Well, if the International Criminal Court is saying that the prime minister is now wanted, an arrest warrant is out for him for war crimes and crimes against humanity, that may become complicated with the Justice Department in the United States. In addition to that, we have South Africa's court against Israel and the International Court of Justice for genocide. Now, the International Criminal Court was very clear. It said that it could not substantiate the charge of extermination, the charge of genocide. However, the fact that the prime minister is charged with war crimes using starvation as a method of war is likely to fan the winds for South Africa also. All these things are going to increase mounting pressure on Israel. Likely what we're going to see as an outcome is that Israel is going to become that much more reliant on the United States, on President-elect Trump, because it's going to have a very big narrowing of the scope of who it can negotiate with, where ministers can even go visit, because there might also be other secret arrest warrants out. So once again, it's unlikely that we're going to see Netanyahu and Gallant arrested, but we are going to see a large impact on the war and an increase of Israel's reliance on the United States. And possibly, if not only the United States, Israel is going to turn to other countries that are not signatories on the ICC as well, in order to try to develop ties with them at the expense of developing the ties with Europe and other countries that are part of the International Criminal Court.
Alon uploads his own very informative updates on the war to his personal YouTube channel. As always, Alon, good to see you. Take care.